The studio lights were hot. The cameras were already rolling. The crowd was buzzing, not with excitement, but with anticipation. This wasn't a trial, but it sure felt like one. Across from the bench sat the legendary Judge Judy Marks, tough-talking, sharp-tongued, America's self-proclaimed voice of reason. And across from her, Congresswoman Jasmine Rowe, known for her sharp intellect, her unflinching tone, and her refusal to be intimidated by titles or tenure. This wasn't supposed to be a confrontation, at least not officially. The producers had marketed the segment as an open conversation between two powerful women, but before a single question was asked, Judge Judy leaned forward and fired the first shot. "Let's not waste anyone's time, shall we?" she said. "Because from what I've seen, you like to grandstand. You like sound bites. You like applause. But that's not how justice works." Jasmine didn't move, didn't blink. She just stared directly at Judy, composed, patient, unshaken. Judy wasn't done. "This is not Capitol Hill. This is not a Twitter war, and I am not one of your interns. So don't come here expecting special treatment. I don't care who you are in Washington. Here, you sit in front of me, and you answer to me." There it was. The power play, the posture, the same tactics Judy had used for years to dominate every guest who dared disagree. Only this time, something was different. Because Jasmine Rowe was not flustered. She didn't flinch. And that silence, that calm, rattled Judy more than any raised voice ever could. "I see," Jasmine said quietly. "So this is how we're doing it." A hush fell over the studio. She hadn't even begun. But everyone felt it. This wasn't going to be like every other Judge Judy segment. This time, the judge wasn't the only one with authority in the room. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, still sizing Jasmine up. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw clenched, and that trademark smirk began to fade. Because Jasmine wasn't playing along. She wasn't reacting the way guests usually did. No defensiveness. No flustered rebuttals. Just poise. Just presence. That unnerved Judy more than any insult ever could. So she tried again. "Oh, don't get cute with me. Don't just sit there. Say something. Or are you waiting for applause before you start?" Jasmine folded her hands, took a slow breath, and then, finally, she spoke. "I was invited to have a conversation," she said calmly. "Not to be ambushed for ratings. If you want a debate, I'm ready. If you want to perform, I'll watch. But let's be clear on who's doing what." The audience held its breath. The air in the studio shifted. Judge Judy stiffened. Her voice now clipped, irritated. "This isn't about me. This is about the way you and your party pretend to know better than the people you claim to serve. You use big words. You throw out buzz phrases. But when it's time to deliver, you vanish. That's not leadership. That's theater." Jasmine didn't flinch. She waited for Judy to finish, then responded, her tone low and surgical. "I didn't come here for character critique. I came to address the facts. If you'd like to have that conversation, let's begin. If not, we can wrap this now and spare the viewers your projections." A few gasps echoed from the crowd. Even the cameraman flinched at that one. Judge Judy clenched the pen in her hand, trying to maintain control. But Jasmine wasn't backing down, and everyone could see it. This wasn't disrespect. This wasn't defiance. It was clarity. Cold. Precise. And it was working. For once, Judy Marks wasn't driving the exchange. Jasmine leaned forward. Her tone didn't rise. Her posture didn't change. But her words sliced through the room like a scalpel. "You say I vanish when it's time to deliver," she said. "So let's talk about delivery. Let's talk about policy. Let's talk about record. Because I didn't bring cameras. I brought facts. And the moment she said that, Judge Judy's eyes flicked to the folder on the table. Until now, it had just been part of the set. Un neutral prop. But Jasmine slowly opened it, revealing a series of printed documents. Receipts. Votes. Legislation. Dates. Do you remember your segment from 2 weeks ago? Jasmine asked. The one where you claimed I supported defunding the police. Where you said I wanted chaos in the streets. Let me read you my actual voting record. The camera zoomed in on the paper as Jasmine read aloud. I voted yes on increased funding for community policing. I co-sponsored a bipartisan bill to improve officer training. I've never once voted to eliminate public safety departments. Silence. Judge Judy didn't interrupt. Because she couldn't. And Jasmine wasn't done. You also said, on national television, that I called all law enforcement racist. That's a lie. What I said, and what I still believe, is that racism exists within systems. That acknowledging bias is the first step to building trust. That calling for accountability is not the same as calling for abolition. That truth matters. More murmurs in the audience. Some heads nodded. Some leaned in closer. But no one was laughing anymore. Because this wasn't a soundbite war. It was a cross-examination. And Judge Judy had just walked into her own courtroom without realizing she was the one on trial. Jasmine held up the next page in her folder. This time it wasn't her own record. It was Judge Judy's. Not her court rulings. But her quotes. Her interviews. Her legacy in her own words. I came across this interview you gave in 2015. She began, where you said, and I quote, "Most people who come through my courtroom lie. That's just how it is. You assume guilt, and you usually won't be disappointed." The air in the room shifted again. That quote hadn't been heard in years. But Jasmine had it printed, highlighted, and documented. She wasn't just coming with receipts. She was bringing the entire file cabinet. You see the problem, right? Jasmine continued. You've built a reputation off assuming the worst. Not just in criminals, but in civilians, in parents, in veterans, in black women, in poor communities. You've turned skepticism into entertainment. And we clapped along. We laughed. We watched people break down on national television while you told them they were lucky to even be heard. Is that justice? Or is that ratings? Judge Judy's lips tightened, 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 tightened. She tried to speak, but Jasmine couldn't. You had your monologue. Now let me have mine. You said I was dangerous. But I've never reduced a crying mother to a punchline for views. I've never made a scared teenager the setup for a joke. That's your record. That's your legacy. And if you can't stand the mirror, then maybe you should have stayed off the stage. The audience didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just sat still, staring. Because no one had ever made the Judge of America sit that quietly. Not on her own show. Not on live television. And especially not with her own words thrown back at her line for line. Jasmine shifted gears. Calmer now. But no less exact. I came here knowing you'd try to discredit me. She said. That's what you do. You interrupt. You out-talk. You belittle. And usually people fold. They stammer. They shrink. They make it easy for you. But I'm not here to play easy. Because this isn't your show anymore. This is public record. And the public deserves clarity. Let's talk about your episode last year. The one where you screamed at that woman for not knowing legal jargon. She wasn't a lawyer. She wasn't a criminal. She was a nurse. And you called her ignorant because she confused a civil judgment with a criminal charge. Do you know what she said after? Do you? Judge Judy said nothing. So Jasmine answered for her. She said she'd never watch daytime court again, because she thought justice was supposed to feel fair, not humiliating. You didn't correct her. You mocked her. That's what you gave America. Not law. Not education. Just shame. The camera cut briefly to Judge Judy. Her eyes didn't move. Her hands didn't twitch. But her legend, it cracked. Quietly. Under pressure. Under facts. Under a woman who didn't shout. Didn't bluff. Didn't blink. She just documented everything and delivered it like a verdict. Jasmine reached for another document. This one printed in bold. A breakdown of Judge Judy's guest demographics over the last 5 years. 80% of defendants on your show are people of color. She said, that's not a coincidence. That's casting. That's a pattern. Judge Judy inhaled, tried to raise her hand. But Jasmine kept going. You say you treat everyone the same. But equality isn't screaming at everyone equally. It's understanding that the courtroom isn't just a stage. It's a reflection of how society sees who's worthy of patience and who's disposable. You've branded yourself as tough love. But let's strip it down. What you've built isn't discipline. It's dominance. And for decades, America mistook your contempt for strength. Because you packaged it in a robe and told people it was justice. More heads turned in the crowd. Some mouths dropped. No one interrupted, because everyone could feel it. This wasn't a debate anymore. It was an indictment, not of a person, but of a system, a legacy, a genre. You used the bench as a spotlight, Jasmine continued. And every time someone cried or begged or misspoke, you turned up the heat for ratings. Is that justice? Or just reality television with gavels? Judge Judy didn't respond. She didn't need to, because by now, her silence was louder than her verdicts ever were. The show ended abruptly, not with applause, not with a fade to credits, just a cut to black. A segment that was supposed to be 20 minutes lasted 11. The network tried to spin it. Said the interview was pre-recorded, said the audio cut out, said nothing unusual occurred. But the internet knew better. The full clip leaked within hours. Uncut. Unfiltered. Raw. And when people saw it, they didn't see a rogue guest. They saw a woman, unshaken, prepared, deliberate. And they saw Judge Judy, the legend, blink. The hashtags began immediately. Number justice reversed number, Jasmine for the people number, gavel dropped. Commentators from all corners weighed in. Lawyers applauded the fact-checking journalists, dissected the media structure. Jasmine exposed viewers, replayed the line. You didn't correct her, you mocked her. Over and over. Because it wasn't just about Judge Judy anymore. It was about every public figure, every platform, every performance that had been allowed to masquerade as truth. And now, the masquerade was over. The clip didn't just trend. It detonated. Morning shows tried to sidestep it. Late-night monologues danced around it. But social media turned it into gospel. Jasmine's takedown wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, it wasn't petty. It was surgical, controlled, undeniable. And for the first time in over 2 decades, Judge Judy wasn't the authority. She was the defendant. Videos surfaced of other Judy clips. Moments people once laughed at, now viewed with disgust. Old fans began to say things like, I used to think she was strong, now I see she was just loud. I used to call it entertainment. Now it feels like bullying. Every quote Jasmine dropped. Every record she cited. Every quiet pause she held was dissected and replayed, because it reminded people that silence isn't weakness, facts don't need volume, and real strength. Real strength walks into a lion's den without armor, without fear, without asking permission. Articles followed. The Washington Post called Jasmine Rowe a masterclass in restraint. The Atlantic wrote, for the first time, the queen of televised court faced a woman who refused to play by the script and won. Even law schools began circulating the clip as a new kind of case study, not about guilt or innocence, but about dignity. Jasmine didn't bask in it. She didn't post a selfie. She didn't clap back. She simply shared one line on her page. Power without accountability is just performance. That post hit harder than any headline, because it wasn't an insult. It was a definition. And overnight, people started changing their definitions too. By the next morning, the clip had crossed platforms. It wasn't just trending on social media. It was playing on news segments, it was echoing in classrooms, it was being shared in group chats across industries. Law professors began citing it, not as drama, but as a case study. A real-time demonstration of what happens when someone walks into a loaded environment and deconstructs it without raising their voice. Jasmine never released a statement. She didn't need to. The footage spoke for itself. Every word from her mouth had been deliberate, measured, anchored in record, delivered with the precision of someone who didn't come to win but came to reveal. Meanwhile, the Judge Judy brand began to flicker. Networks paused, reruns. Streaming platforms added disclaimers to episodes. Former guests came forward, sharing their own moments of being ridiculed, humiliated, silenced. What Jasmine had done wasn't cancel culture, it was exposure culture. And it couldn't be undone. Because when a woman sits down and dismantles a decades-old persona calmly, logically in front of the world, it doesn't matter who had the mic first. It matters who used it last. Weeks later, a university in Washington added a new seminar to its ethics curriculum. Truth Under Fire, the Jasmine Rowe confrontation. Students dissected it frame by frame. Legal scholars unpacked the rhetorical choices. Even Hollywood commentators admitted. That wasn't television. That was a reckoning. And Jasmine, she stayed quiet. No press tour, no victory lap, no merch drop. She let the silence carry the weight. Because that's what happens. When you don't argue for attention, you argue for clarity. She didn't destroy Judge Judy. She didn't scream. She didn't humiliate. She did something harder. She held a mirror up to power and let it crack itself. That clip is still online. Millions of views. Still spreading. Because people don't just remember what Jasmine said. They remember how she made arrogance fold. Not with rage, but with receipts. Not with venom, but with vision. And the verdict: the courtroom isn't just a room anymore. It's any space where truth walks in and refuses to leave, no matter how loud the legend screams.